Hi, welcome to Nexus Consultancy. We provide professional and strategic consultation services specializing in ISO management system standards on quality, environmental, food safety, and many other standards as well. At Nexus Consultancy, we combine our analytical thinking, improvement-centric approach, and results-oriented mindset to help businesses to grow through ISO certifications. Consulting is more than just giving advice. To us, consulting is about building the connection with customers, solving their problems, implementing the change, and at last, helping them to grow. Our company's purpose is very simple, which is to empower business and people. We have dedicated 12 years in helping businesses to grow and also achieve operational process improvement through ISO certifications. Having served thousands of companies, Nexus Consultancy has truly built a legacy in helping customers to achieve long-term business growth. We have served companies from GLCs, SMEs to big corporations from a wide range of industries. We will work closely with you to create a customized consultation as unique as you are, offering you a truly value-added service which can fulfill your business needs and objectives. We believe in what we do and we would also like to do it for you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Good day to you, and welcome to our monthly webinar series. I'm Darren here, and I would be your speaker for today. Now, our topic for today would be on ESG, what SMEs should know, and how to get started. So before we start, I would like to do a quick sound and video check. Okay, if you can hear and see me, kindly just put 1 into the chat box so that I know that I'm not talking to myself. Yep. If you can see and hear me, kindly put 1 into the chat box. Let's do a quick sound and video check. Let me just see. All right, so I believe, yep, I believe you all do. Thank you very much for your feedback. And I would encourage everyone to type any question that you may have in the chat box. Okay, we will address the questions at the end of the session today, or at the end of this session. All right, so before we go into the topic of ESG, I'd like to ask you as well, what would you like to achieve in this session today? Is it number 1? You are here to learn how you can play a role to make the world and your business more sustainable through ESG. You may have heard of the ESG and their benefits, and you are here to see how you can make your business as well as the world more sustainable by using ESG standards. Is it 1? Or is it 2, that you are here because your customer or potential customers may be requiring you to comply to ESG requirements or some ESG standards, or you are here to fulfill customer requirements with regards to ESG? Or is it number 3, you have heard of ESG and want to know more, or want to understand more? Okay, what is it all about? And what are the criteria? Okay, what does it mean? Okay, so is it 3? You want to understand more about ESG? So would it be 1, 2, or 3? So do type your question, your answer into the chat box. Is it 1 or 2 or 3? Or if you have other things that you would like to achieve here, okay, do feel free to share with us as well. So would it be 1? What would you like to achieve here? Would it be 1? Would it be 2? Or would it be 3? So I can see some answers. Okay, we have all 3. We have 1, 2, and 3 as well. Okay, thank you very much for sharing. So let us begin. Okay, with what is ESG? Okay, let's take a look at ESG. ESG is actually an acronym, okay, for environmental, social, and governance. Okay, environmental, social, and governance. Hence ESG. ESG takes a holistic view that sustainability extends beyond just environmental issues. ESG is best characterized as a framework that helps stakeholders understand how an organization is managing risks and opportunities related to environmental, social, and governance. While the term ESG is often used in the context of investing, I think for those who are into investments, okay, you may have heard of ESG, okay, or sustainable investments, okay, but not just in investment, okay. Now ESG is also used, okay, in not just in investment community, but also by customers, by suppliers, okay, by employees, okay. All of them are increasingly interested in how sustainable an organization's operations are. Okay. Now, if you think that your business is too small to justify making sustainability a priority, then you may want to think again. Okay. If you think that your business is too small, okay, that it's difficult for you to justify, sustainability as a priority, then you may need to think again. So why so? Let's take a look at some of the world statistics. Okay, in some of these world statistics, it is found that 67% of privately owned companies or SMEs, okay, have ESG initiatives in place. All right, and then more than 3 out of 4, that's equivalent to 77% of SMEs, have a formal purpose statement related to ESG, meaning they have a policy, they have directions with regards to ESG. And nearly 1 out of 5, or 18.5% of SMEs, are currently using ESG standards. And 76% of consumers say that they will stop buying from companies that treat the environment, treat the people, the employees, treat the community in which they operate poorly. So if they treat the environment, employees, or the community in which they operate in poorly, 76% of consumers say that they would not buy from them. So let's do a simple survey here. Okay, would you stop buying from companies that treat the environment, employees, or community poorly? Would you? You may type 1 in the chat box if the answer is yes. Yes, you will start buying from them if they treat the environment or the employees or the community poorly. Or 2, no, it doesn't. You're not too concerned. Okay, you will not stop to buy from them. Okay, so which one would it be? Okay, would it be 1 or would it be 2? 1, you would buy. One, yes, you will stop buying if they do not, okay, treat the environment better or the employees better. Or 2, okay, no, okay, doesn't matter. Okay, you will still continue to buy from them. So which one would it be? 1 or 2? And I see answers are all 1. Yes. Okay. And to a question that I see there is the statistics, Malaysia or world-based. This is world statistic. Okay. Now, sustainability, it's a top priority for every business, regardless of its size and scope. So this is due to the growing public concerns about consequences of climate change, okay, and the exploitation of natural resources, as well as the human rights and inequity issues. Stakeholders, employees, regulators, investors, as well as the public are now looking for more information about companies' ESG performance. So ESG shouldn't be regarded simply as just an obligation. Okay, it can also lead to new business opportunities and bigger profit margins. Small and medium-sized companies or SMEs that embrace as ESG can look forward to these following benefits. Okay, you can look forward to a competitive advantage. Having an ESG program in place helps boost brand recognition and promotes brand loyalty. Today, consumers and clients are increasingly aware of ethical spending and spend more or care more about what the company does to support sustainability. SMEs that have taken steps to meet sustainability concerns, like having an ESG program, have been known to attract more consumers, more customers, and more clients. And number two, it will lead to cost reduction. By implementing an ESG program, SMEs can track key metrics like energy consumption, like water consumptions, like waste management costs, like raw material usage. This tracking ability is a prerequisite for any companies to plan programs to improve efficiency, which will lead to reduced costs associated with energy and water usage or even waste management. In addition to improving cost management, ESG programs would also allow operational efficiency. It will allow less exposure to penalties, to fines from the government. It will lead to better risk management. It will lead to improved innovations. Take for example, or imagine this. Let's say your company goes green. Okay, like moving to digital receipts or digital records or digital documents, or using recycled or compostable packaging materials, improve waste management, or make energy efficiency upgrades. Okay, all this will lead to savings, which would mean higher profits for you or for the company. Right. So number three, it will become more attractive to banks, to investors. Okay, it will attract the attention of investors or banks or any other lenders. That that this will become one of the biggest advantage of having an ESG program. The growing public concern connected to the climate change, connected to sustainability, is causing investors and banks to look more closely at sustainable companies to encourage this movement. All right, so it will become more attractive. And similarly, okay, supply chain. Okay, much like investors are paying more attention to ESG, now many companies are looking for sustainability or supply chain partners which embrace sustainability efforts. For example, many retail stores are making decisions not to stock products made by companies considered to have poor ESG performance. Our companies' supply chains have an effect to the environment, to the people, to the society. So companies that take ESG goals seriously would find it to be in their best interest, okay, to partner with suppliers who also share the same vision or the same goal, right? So it will attract and retain more talents. Today, many job seekers are looking for more than just a paycheck, looking for more than just a salary. But they want to enjoy their jobs, they want to feel appreciated, and they want to make a positive impact. Working for a company with strong ESG goals appear to be on the top factor for employees' job satisfaction. So having ESG measures and policies in place, okay, not only help to attract new customers, new investments, okay, new talents, it also enhance profits and it also enhance reputation by decreasing your carbon footprint or your greenhouse gas emissions. The business also becomes better in able to handle the increasing regulatory requirements anticipated in the years ahead. I think this is true. Okay, if you look around, okay, if you look at what the government is doing, if you look at what some of the large corporations are doing, okay, we would probably be seeing an increased regulatory requirements or law, okay, in the years ahead, okay, as employees and stakeholders demand ESG improvements and transparency. So in short, okay, to conclude, it is a win-win for any company to embrace ESG measures, okay, to get ahead, okay, of your competitors, to ensure your company's success. So these are benefits of ESG. So let's take a look at then what would be the criteria. So if you want to embark on ESG, so what will be the criteria? There are now a growing number of ESG reporting frameworks or standards, and as well as rating agencies, all of which have evolved to improve the transparency and consistency in ESG reporting or ESG information that the companies are reporting. Okay, for example, we have rating agency like GRI, okay, Global Reporting Initiative, founded in the US, which is adopted by the UN, United Nations. In Malaysia, we have Bursa Malaysia, okay, which have got a sustainability reporting guidelines, okay. And I suppose some of you may also encounter customers, okay, requesting you for compliance to certain ESG standards, for example, SEDAC standard or the BSCI or RBA, okay. So all these reporting framework or standards, okay, they have common criteria, okay, that will be addressed. Okay, so let's take a look at some of these criteria or ESG criteria which would be relevant to the SMEs. Okay, we have the environmental, we have the social, and we have the governance. Let's start with environmental. Okay. Environmental criteria refer to an organization's environmental impact and environmental risks created by their business activities or by their operations that have an actual or potential negative impacts on land, on air, to the air, on to the water, on the ecosystems, and human health. And it looks into how the organization would be managing this risk. So for environment, okay, the criteria commonly looked at would be the waste generated in your company or in your organization. Okay, what will be the waste generated? One significant waste would be the scheduled waste. Okay, so what is scheduled waste? Scheduled waste is toxic waste. Okay, many SMEs or many operations would be generating scheduled waste. For example, if you are a manufacturer, okay, you would have machines, okay, and the machines would need to be serviced, okay, would need to be maintained. So when you do maintenance, let's say when you change lubricant, okay, or when you use grease, okay, the grease may overflow, okay, or the lubricant may spill. So you may probably just simply use a cloth and wipe out the spillage or the lubricant. So now this cloth has been contaminated with lubricant. So what do you do with this cloth? Okay, do you wash it? If you wash it, then the lubricant will be washed out and go into the water. Do you throw away this cloth? If you throw away this cloth, okay, if it lands into the landfill, okay, it will cause the land pollution. Okay, so what do you do with this cloth? So this is an example of scheduled waste. So this cloth that is contaminated with lubricant is a scheduled waste. Okay, so how do you manage scheduled waste? So this will be something that the criteria, okay, would be looking into. How do you manage scheduled waste? Okay, at home, in your company, you may have fluorescent tubes. Okay, fluorescent tubes. The fluorescent tubes, if it's after it is burned out, okay, then you take down. Where do you dispose this fluorescent tube? Okay, because inside it has mercury. So this fluorescent tube would also be considered as a scheduled waste. So how do you manage your scheduled waste? So that will be looked into. Next would be pollution. Okay, pollution. Now, assuming okay, let me bring up my pen. Okay, assuming this is your premise, okay, your company, okay, your factory, your premise. Okay, so in your premise, okay, or if it is a factory, what can be emitted up from your factory? Okay, what can be emitted up? Okay, if you have things like boiler or you have a genset, okay, so you may be emitting, okay, air impurities outright. Air impurities. So if you are emitting air impurities, then it may cause air pollution. Or you may be discharging water, or wastewater out from your factory. So if you are discharging water, then it may lead to water pollution, right? Or you could be uh, throwing rubbish out, or throwing waste out, then it may lead to land pollution. Or if you may be emitting loud noise, noise that comes out from your premise into the neighbor, so you may be causing noise pollution. So we will need to measure. So these are some of the pollution that can occur or that may be a result of your operations. So we will need to measure, or in the ESG standards, the environmental standards, they will need to measure, do your company pollutes the environment or not? Do you have air pollution? Do you have water pollution? Do you have noise pollution? Or do you have land pollution? So all this would need to be controlled. They will need to be controlled. So if you are going for ESG implementation, then do be aware that these are the things that you would need to control to make sure that there would be no such pollution coming out from your organization. All right. Next thing that we'll be looking into would be the greenhouse gas emissions, or the climate change. Climate change, basically global warming. Global warming. That's a climate change. So what caused global warming actually? What caused global warming? Now, previously, let's say this is the sun. All right, sun would emit the radiation. Sun will emit the radiation. All right. So previously, many years ago, this radiation would be reflected out. So when it reaches the Earth's surface, it will be reflected out. Reflected out of the Earth. Now that was many years ago. All right. So now, because of industrialization, because of deforestation, because of the car that we are driving, because of air cons that we are using, so we are emitting or contributing to the emissions of what we call the greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases. So greenhouse gases are gases like carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, methane, CFC, chlorofluorocarbons. Previously, our air conditioners, our refrigerators, air conditioners. We need to put gas in it. For it to function, for it to work. Those gas previously they contain CFC. So when being emitted out, that's an example of greenhouse gases. So now with industrialization, with development, with economic growth, with deforestation, we have more and more, or we are generating more and more greenhouse gases, and these greenhouse gases actually would stay here for a couple of hundred of years. It will stay here on Earth, and making this radiation no longer be able to go up from the Earth. So the radiation will be trapped here, will be trapped along this layer of greenhouse gases. So that's how global warming comes about. Because we are emitting more and more greenhouse gases. So when we are emitting more and more greenhouse gases, the temperature of the Earth, it's increasing. So we are getting hotter and hotter and hotter. Hence the global warming. Greenhouse gases. How much greenhouse gas are you emitting? Also, that will be one of the criteria, okay, that some of these standards will look into. Greenhouse gases. Energy use. Consumption of non-renewable energy shall be optimized and closely monitored by establishing baseline values, and the trend shall be observed within the appropriate time frame. That there should be a plan to access usage of non-renewable energy, like for example, petrol, diesel, electricity, or energy efficiency in your operations over a base period, over a specified period. So how much energy are you using? Measure that, and then improve. Okay, measure that. How much energy are you using right now? Right now, that will be the base, and then how much you want to reduce, or how much can you reduce? So that will be another criteria that the standards would be looking into. Are you complying to Malaysia environmental legal requirements? So this would also be the thing that would be looked into, or would be would be accessed. Okay, compliance to Malaysia environmental legal requirements. What are example of Malaysia environmental legal requirements? There would be the Environmental Quality Act, okay, the Clean Air Regulations, okay, the Industrial Effluent Regulations. That's how we talk about schedule waste, the schedule waste regulations. That's how we also talk about CFC, okay, so that is the refrigerant management regulation. So these are examples of Malaysia environmental legal requirements. So are you complying to these legal requirements? So the aspect and impact analysis of all operations should be carried out by using, for example, environmental impact assessment. Okay, if the impact is significant, okay, then eliminate or minimize the environmental impacts caused by the companies by coming out with an action plan. Okay, so these are some of the common environmental criteria. So if you have any question regarding this environmental pillar, do feel free to put it into the chat box. I will attend to your question at the end of the webinar. So this will be environmental. Now, next will be social. Okay, the social pillar refers to an organization's relationship with its stakeholders. It looks at how the organization treats people or treats your worker. Example of factors that a company may be measured against would include the human rights. Well, are you practicing human rights? Do you have a human rights policy in place? So companies or businesses should have a policy or a human rights policy in place, approved by the top management. So the human rights policy would cover, for example, issues like there should not be physical or verbal abuse, there should not be sexual or other kind of harassment, or bullying or violence, okay, or any other forms of intimidation, for example, threats, okay. All this must be prohibited, and ensure that this policy is communicated to all appropriate parties, including your contractors, including your suppliers. So human rights policy would be required. Now, and should the human rights be violated, okay, there should be a transparent and well-communicated system in place to enable the workforce or the external stakeholders, example, your contractors, suppliers, the public, to report to the company their grievances. Okay, their grievances. Hence, you need a grievance mechanism in place. You need to have a grievance mechanism or grievance procedure in place. Okay, and when reporting grievance, okay, workers should know that they should not have fear, okay, when reporting. So there should not be any fear of reprisals, okay, towards the reporter. Meaning, oh, you report the company, then I do not give you any salary, or I cut your salary, or I punish you, I discipline you. So this should not be done, and there should be no fear of this kind of treatment. Okay, should the person or the worker choose to report their grievances. There should be no discrimination. There should be no discrimination in the organization. Okay, example in hiring, okay, in compensation, being sent for trainings, promotion, termination, or retirement. Okay, there should be no discrimination based on race or religion, or national origin, or age, or gender, or disability, or marital status, or whether someone's joined a union, okay, or someone's joined a political affiliation or political party. So there should be no discrimination. So, and we will need an anti-discrimination policy, and it should be communicated as well. Okay, so these are some of the criteria that the ESG will look into in terms of the human rights. ESG will look into, or ESG standards will look into the labor requirements. Labor standards offer protection, okay, to both workers and employers. Ensure that workers receive their fair pay, their compensation, ensure job security, regulate breaks, regulate working hours, promote better working conditions, reduce conflicts, and more. So employers will gain more productivity and profits, okay, if their workers are secure, if they are healthy, and if they are happy. Okay, so what should companies or SMEs should know, okay, and what will be addressed? Okay, so these are the criteria that would be addressed. Okay, employment should be freely chosen. Okay, there should be no forced or bonded labor. Okay, so if your company is recruiting or hiring foreign workers, okay, so you should not be saying, okay, I'm afraid that they may run off, okay, they will run away, so you keep their passport. So this would not be allowed. Employers or the company shall not keep a worker's passport or keep the deposit. You need to place a deposit with our company first before I can allow you to work. So this should not happen. Or you should not keep any form of their identity papers. Workers should be free to choose their employment, and they should be free to leave the premise or the employment, okay, by providing reasonable notice. Workers should have the freedom of association. Workers shall be given right to join or form workers' representation or union, okay, in order for workers to collectively bargain with the employer. Okay, and workers shall not be discriminated against, okay, should they join or form workers' representation or union, and they should be allowed to carry out their functions, okay, to join the union, to join the workers' representation, to collectively bargain with the company. Collectively bargain, so they represent, okay, the workers. We have with the workers' representative, and then what are the requirements or the needs of the workers would be collected and then brought to the management or to the company, okay, for bargaining. So that's what we call a collectively bargain. All right. So I think last week it was in the news as well. Okay, there's one automotive company which terminated a few of their workers, okay, because they found out that the workers joined a union. Okay, so this should not happen as well. Okay, it should not be discriminated. No employment of child labor. Okay, employer shall not employ child labor in accordance to the Malaysia Children and Young Person Employment Act. Okay, so employer or the company shall not employ child labor below the age of 15. Okay, so do carry out age check, okay, during the hiring stage. Okay, so this will be some of the things that the ESG standard or the labor standard will look into. Do you carry out any verification, okay, during hiring or not? Pay and benefits. Minimum pay shall at least fulfill the national minimum wage order. So right now, okay, we have the minimum wages order 2022. So anyone has got any idea? Okay, what would be the minimum wage right now? What is the minimum pay right now? Anyone got any idea? If you do, do type in the chat box. What would be the minimum pay, or how much should you be paying at least to your workers per month? Anyone has got any idea? It is actually based on the minimum wages order 2022. It would be 1.5K. That's right. Okay, so it will be 1,500 per month. So, and it took effect on the first of May 2022. 1st of May 2022. So now, right now, minimum pay would be 1,500 ringgit per month. So this you will need to comply. Other things like benefits, for example, overtime pay, rest day, public holidays, shall be in accordance to the Employment Act. So employer shall have clear documentation with workers, and workers also need to understand, okay, what kind of benefits are they getting, and also need to understand their employment conditions. For example, with regards to their pay, if there's any deductions, what are those deductions? How are they deducted? Okay, so all these things must be clear, and it has to be documented. And working hours. Okay, working hours must comply to Employment Act, or if the company has got a collective agreement. Just now, you remember we were talking about collective bargaining. If there is a collective bargaining agreement, okay, so working hours must comply to that collective bargaining agreement. If not, it has to comply with the Employment Act. Okay, so in order to provide better protection for the workers. So according to Employment Act 1955, according to the old Act, working hours shall not exceed 48 hours per week. Shall not exceed 48 hours per week. However, okay, referring to the Employment Act Amendment 2022, so the working hours would be reduced from 48 hours per week to 45 hours per week. And this will take effect on 1st of September 2022. So come 1st September 2022, the working hours allowed would be 45 hours per week. So anything more than that will be overtime, and overtime should be voluntary. So those are some of the common labor standards criteria. For health and safety, next one will be health and safety. For health and safety, okay, standards will look at a healthy and safe working environment. Okay, the hazard and risks of all operations shall be assessed and documented. A company should be providing a healthy and safe working environment to the workers or to the employees. Okay, so adequate steps should be taken to prevent any injury or ill health from happening at the workplace. It will look into the welfare of the workers. Example of welfare: access to clean toilet facilities, provided with potable water, have sanitary facilities, provide sitting benches, okay, provide first aid box, okay. So these are example of welfare to the workers. So in Malaysia, for this part, when we talk about welfare, we would have to comply with there is a regulation which we call the Factories and Machinery Safety, Health and Welfare Regulations. Okay, so that will state down, okay, the welfare requirements or welfare that you need to provide to the workers. Workers will need to be trained. Okay, workers will need to be trained. They should be receiving regular trainings. For example, how to use chemicals safely, how to use this machine safely, how to wear PPE, how to wear earplugs correctly. So this kind of trainings, okay. If they are appointed to fight fire, okay, how to fight fire, firefighting trainings, okay, this kind of trainings, okay. So the companies will be evaluated whether trainings or health and safety trainings are provided or not to to the workers, both new workers as well as reassigned workers, if they are reassigned to other work area. Health and safety legal requirements, just like environmental legal requirements, health and safety, the organization, the company will need to comply to the Malaysia health and safety legal requirements. They are many. Okay, for example, safety and health committee regulations, classification, labeling, and safety detection of chemicals, use and standard exposure of chemicals and others to health. If there's any accident, you need to notify DOSH. Okay, there's a regulation for that. Noise exposure, there's a regulation for that. If you have rotating parts will need to be fenced. There's a regulation for that. That's called the fencing of machinery and safety regulations. So compliance to the health and safety legal requirements. So ESG standards, okay, we'll look into that, whether you comply to the Malaysia health and safety legal requirements. You will look into whether you have an emergency preparedness and response plan or not. Identify what kind of emergency that could happen at your workplace. What kind of emergency would happen at your workplace? Okay, example, fire may happen. I store petrol, I store chemicals. Then if I smoke next to it, then fire may happen. So if fire may happen, then how would you respond if the fire do occur? So you need emergency response plan. You need to establish, identify what kind of potential emergency that you have, and then come up with the emergency response plan. And if really fire did happen, or an accident did happen, or an incident did happen, okay, really do happen, then how do you have in place a mechanism to investigate, to identify the root cause, and then come up with the actions, okay, correction and corrective actions, so that it will not happen again in future? Do you have an incident investigation mechanism or an incident investigation procedure? So this will be among the criteria as well when we talk about health and safety. In other criteria that will be looked into in the social pillar, it's community relations. Okay, this is an opportunity for the company, okay, and its workforce to determine what benefits they can bring to the local community, your surrounding, your neighbors. Okay, example, do you contribute to the local schools, to the local hospitals, the nearby clinics, community centers? Do you run sports programs, health programs? Okay, do you provide, for example, transportation facilities? Okay, example, to your workers' family, okay, to go see doctors or to the markets. Okay, so basically it looks at how your relationship with the community. How do you contribute to the local community? So this is also one criteria in the social pillar. So these are some of the common social criteria, okay, which are, I believe, we also focus on the SME industries. So if you have any question, do feel free to type into the chat box. We'll attend to your question at the end of this webinar. And the last pillar would be governance. So governance refers to how an organization is led and managed, and what type of internal controls exist to promote transparency and accountability by the organization's leader. Okay, so how SME companies would be governed. Some of the criteria that would be focused on is business ethics. Business shall conduct their business ethically, without bribery, without corruption, without any type of fraudulent business practices. For example, under-reporting of revenue in order to save on tax. Okay, this kind of fraudulent business practices should not be done. So do you have a business ethics policy that states that bribery, corruption, or any type of fraudulent business practice are prohibited. And if found to be guilty, then what will be the consequences? So do you have such policy or not? So this kind of policy would need to be documented and would need to be communicated. Another criteria in governance would be anti-bribery. Anti-bribery. So do your organization have got an anti-bribery policy? Is it documented? Is it established, documented? Is it communicated? Do your company has got a no-gift policy? I was just conducting a training last week at an organization, and they informed me that their no-gift policy is that they cannot accept any gift of 500 ringgit and above. Totally cannot accept any gift 500 value at 500 ringgit and above, be it in cash or buy a big hamper or bring them for entertainment or go for some hospitality, hotel stays. So anything more than 500 ringgit is not allowed. Now, and if the amount is between 100 to 500 ringgit, they can accept, but it has to be declared. It has to be recorded. It has to be declared to the organization, to the management, if they receive anything between 100 ringgit to 500 ringgit. So it will mean that they can only accept gift below 100 ringgit without the need to declare. So this is their no gift policy. So do you have a no gift policy in your organization? And if you do come across any gifts or any bribery case, so how would you report that bribery? Who would you report it to? Is there a whistleblowing procedure in place? And if the company, upon receiving the report, then what would the company do? Okay, how would they carry out the investigation? Who would carry out the investigation? How to take action? Do you have a bribery investigation procedure in place? So these are examples of criteria for the governance pillar. So there are other criteria for governance, example, corporate risk management, business continuity, board diversity and structure, accurate and transparent accounting methods. But today I do not cover them because today our focus is those which are relevant to the SME industry. So again, if you have a question, do feel free to type in the chat box. We'll attend to your question at the end of this webinar. And having said all that, okay, having now with an idea of what are the criteria that will be covered in ESG or an ESG standard or framework, and how can we get started? How can a company get started now in their ESG journey to enhance their brand sustainability and reputation? So we would recommend some of these steps which you can consider. Consider, first of all, to determine the gap of your current ESG practices against criteria. So we mentioned many just now. Okay, like how do you handle schedule waste? Do you handle schedule waste correctly? So if you have such gap, then note it down. I do not handle schedule waste right now. So there's a gap here. I am discharging wastewater into the drain right now. So there's a gap here. I do not pay 1,500 ringgit per month to the worker. So there's a gap here. So determine the gap of your current ESG practices against criteria. Then determine the trends that will directly impact your business. What do I mean here? Example, if you are in manufacturing and you are discharging wastewater, so meaning that you can start look or focus into this area. So start by measuring, I am discharging wastewater. So what will be the quality of this wastewater? Start with that. Measure the quality of your wastewater discharge. Or if your company is a company that employs foreign workers, Okay, you can start by ensuring, are the workers being treated fairly? Are they being protected? Are they working in a safe and healthy working environment? So you can start with that. So once you know the gap where you want to and where you want to focus on, come up with an action plan towards ESG compliance. Come up with an action plan. Address criteria by criteria. Okay, until you fulfill all the requirements. Set a time frame. Set a time frame. Okay, a practical time frame for your company. Unless of course you have got regulatory that you need to comply to, customer requirements that you need to comply to. If not, set a suitable and practical time frame that you can that you can move towards. Okay, for example, 1 year or 3 years or 5 years. Move towards ESG compliance. And you would want to measure, okay, whether you are gaining by implementing the ESG. Okay, you would want to measure. Okay, so decide how do you measure. What would you define as a success? You want to implement ESG, and what would you define as a success? Would it be 0 case of pollution? Would it be 0 major injury? Would it be improve talent retention, or perhaps reduce costs, improve profits? So what would you want to measure? Right? Define the measurement. So this last point, measurement, has proven to be one of the most challenging for business, large and small. But the fact that the challenge is universal means that many stakeholders are now working on ways to make ESG measurement better. Okay, so as you can see, ESG it's a very broad topic. It's a very broad topic. So again, then how can we really start? What can you refer to? You can refer to some of these standards for the respective pillars. For example, environmental. You can refer to the ISO 14001 Environmental Management System. You may not need to go for certification unless your customer or your regulator or you want to, but you may not need to, okay, go for certification, but use them as a standard for reference. Okay, you can use the ISO 14001 Environmental Management System. You can refer to ISO 14064, which is a guideline on how to measure the greenhouse gases. You can refer to an ISO 50001 Energy Management System. Or you can refer to SEDEX. Talk about SEDEX in a short while. For social, you can refer to ISO 26000 Guidance for Social Responsibility. You can refer to ISO 45001, okay, which lays down the occupational health and safety management system. You can refer to SA 8000 Social Accountability Standards, which address issues like forced or child labor, health and safety, freedom of association, etc. And for governance, you can refer to ISO 37001. This is an anti-bribery management system. And as you can see, SEDEX appears in all pillars. Also, SEDEX or Supplier Ethical Data Exchange. Okay, this standard is actually quite comprehensive. It covers all 3 areas. It covers all 3 pillars. So if you want to start, okay, you may consider to start by implementing a standard first. Okay, you can for example, you can start with the ISO 14001. Then after achieving the requirements, then you move on to ISO 45000, and then you move on to ISO 37000. And once you have achieved that, when we integrate them together, then you are meeting the ESG requirements. Okay. So on July 7, okay, Finance Minister Tengku Zafrul, our Finance Minister, Malaysian Finance Minister Tengku Zafrul, say that government remains committed to prioritizing environmental, social, and corporate governance focused development programs and projects, okay, which are outlined in the 2023 pre-budget statement. He said that ESG-focused priorities would be the key enablers for Malaysia to transition from the current current recovery phase to the longer term reforms, okay, as outlined in the 12 Malaysia Plan. The government would ramp up the implementation of various sustainability strategies and measures under Budget 2022, okay, that would support Malaysia's long-term ESG-based aspiration. So as you look into the Malaysia Plan or the 12th Malaysian Plan, okay, it is clear that ESG is here to stay, and it is no longer, okay, just a game for the large corporations out there. So SMEs would now have to decide, you would now have to decide, okay, whether or not to make ESG a competitive differentiator and reap the benefits of ESG in making sustainability central to your success. So now it is up to you to decide whether you want to embark on the ESG journey and make sustainability part of your success. So with that, okay, that would be my sharing for today. So yeah, I hope it has been beneficial to you. So do feel free to ask any question that you may have. Just put it into the chat box, and we would now go to the Q&A session. I believe Nicole has put up some questions. Let me just go in. All right. So the question from Nizam: how do we choose and determine which ESG criteria is important to us? Do we cover all or only selected criteria? If let's say I cover only waste management, that will forget the social and governance, right? So yeah, Nizam. So if you are talking about you want to comply to ESG requirements, so meaning you ultimately at the end you cannot be just complying to waste management or environmental. You will also need to be complying to social criteria and governance criteria. All right. And if you're asking, then in the environmental, social, and governance, should I start with environmental first, or should I start with social first, or should I start with governance first? Then, as we shared just now, look at the trends. Okay, what is happening in your organization? So, if your organization is actually discharging, okay, wastewater, polluting the environment, okay, you have bad air quality emitting out from your organization, so you may want to start there first. Okay, so if your company it's a company that relies extensively on workers, especially foreign workers, okay, then you may want to start with the social part, okay, the labor standards, health and safety standards or criteria. Okay, make sure that the workers, okay, they are protected. Okay, you have that they are prevented from injury and ill health from happening to them when they are working in your organization. So I hope that answered the question. So let's see, which standard should I comply if I want to do ESG on my own initiative? On your own initiative, I would think that it will not be because your customer requires you to. Because if the customer requires you to, then normally the customer would say would want you to comply with certain standards. Okay, so if customer do not require you to, and you want to look into ESG on your own initiative, and you want to look at a full ESG scope, so I would suggest a more comprehensive one like the SEDEX standards, which would cover all the three pillars: the environmental, social, and governance pillar. So I would suggest a SEDEX standard. How long do we need in order to comply with all ESG criteria? This would depend on your existing practices. Okay, existing practices. To comply with the criteria, okay, basically what we will need to do is to first understand what criteria first. Okay, then come up with procedures, come up with system, come up with work instructions to comply. Okay, After coming up with the management system, then use the management system and implement. Okay, so this would normally take for the full ESG criteria. This would normally take, I believe, a comfortable duration will be around 9 months. Okay, 9 months in order to fulfill. But I mentioned it is also based on your practices currently, because as you see just now, we mentioned legal requirements. So if you have legal requirements which you need to comply, like for example, wastewater. Just now, wastewater, you need to your quality is very bad, so you need a wastewater treatment plant. So then the building the wastewater treatment plant should be added into your time frame as well. How will Nizam, how will we tell client that we are ESG compliant? Do we provide a report or other alternative? Yes, actually, you provide a report. How do you tell the client you are ESG compliant? You provide a report. So in the market right now, okay, if your client requires you to comply with a certain standards, okay, then if they are not ISO standards, or if they say they want you to have ISO 14,000, ISO 45,000, ISO 37,000, then you will need to provide those standards, okay, those certification standards. But if you are not, okay, then you if they ask you to comply to SEDEX, for example, SEDEX standards, then you may need to ask certification bodies to come and audit you to audit your implementation based on the SEDEX standards, and that certification body will prepare the report, and then this report would be uploaded into a platform, and customer will be able to go into that platform and look at that report. So if customer has got no standards for you to comply to, they just want to know, are you ESG compliant? Then you can also look for certification body. There are now a few certification bodies that do this. Come just to verify your implementation, and then write a report, and you can submit that report. So, yep. How to set ESG metrics and targets? How to set ESG metrics and targets? Back to the measurement. This will be the measurement. How do we determine whether your ESG implementation is successful or not? So we can set, that depends on what is important to you. Okay, if you are thinking about having ESG in order to help reduce pollution, then you can set environmental objectives or targets like a zero major pollution. Or if you want to reduce energy consumption, then you can set a simple one, probably reduction in electricity bill. Okay. Right now, I'm spending 1,000 ringgit per month, so I want to reduce it to 950 ringgit per month next year. So these are ways that you can set. Or you may want to set, I want to retain talent, so then retention rates. So depending on what is important to you and which area you want to focus on. How can you bring about ROI to the organization? ROI, return on investment. Okay, return on investment. Again, that it depends on why you want to embark on ESG. You want to embark on ESG because you want to get more investments. Because now many companies, okay, or public listed companies, okay, they are required to comply to ESG. So people would only invest in ESG compliance companies. So you want to get more investment. So if you want to get more investment, so the ROI will come in the form of investment. Or because your customers inform you that they will only buy from ESG compliance company. So if that is the case, then getting more customers, more contracts, bring about the ROI that you intend. Or you want to, I want to retain my talents. So with good talents, I can bring in more revenue. So is that the objective that you want to achieve? So all this can bring a return to your investment. Do we have more questions? Oh, all right. So there's no more questions. So thank you very much, everyone. So thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I hope that it was beneficial to you. And if you have any question, okay, after this section, do feel free to be in touch with us. I think right before we end, there will be some contact information, okay, on the next slide. So thank you very much for joining this webinar this afternoon, and it was very pleasant and to look to see you all here. Okay, and that will be all for today. So thank you very much. Take care and stay safe. Thank you very much.